Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the Pride Lands, but not to relive the story we all know and love. Instead, we're going back in time to a moment that shaped the very destiny of the kingdom. A moment that sparked a legendary rivalry between two brothers, Mufasa and Scar. This is the story of their first fateful conflict, a tale of jealousy, ambition, and the crown that tore them apart. Long before Simba was born, before Mufasa was the wise and revered king, he was simply the older brother, the heir apparent. His younger brother, Taka, was leaner, perhaps not as physically imposing, but possessed a sharp intellect and a burning desire for recognition. In the shadow of his magnificent older brother, Taka felt overlooked. Mufasa was the sun, golden and celebrated, while Taka felt like a shadow, clinging to the edges of the light. Their father, King Ahadi, ruled the Pride Lands with a just but firm paw. He saw Mufasa's strength and natural leadership, grooming him for the throne. Taka, however, was often reminded of his place as the second son, the spare. Ahadi's praise for Mufasa was frequent and public, while his interactions with Taka were often corrective, focusing on his duties rather than his potential. This constant comparison planted the seeds of resentment deep within Taka's heart. He didn't just want to be respected. He wanted the power his brother was destined to inherit. Taka's frustration began to fester. He started spending more time with the hyenas and the outlands Shinzi, Bonzi, and Ed. They were outcasts, just like him, and they fed his ego, whispering ideas of power and glory into his ear. They told him he was smarter, more cunning than his brother. They made him believe that being king wasn't about strength, but about strategy. With their influence, Taka's jealousy morphed into a dangerous ambition. He began to devise a plan, not just to prove his worth, but to usurp his brother's birthright. The plan was audacious. Taka would lure Mufasa into a confrontation with a particularly aggressive Cape buffalo named Boma. The idea was to make Mufasa look weak and incompetent in front of their father. Taka, using his superior intellect, would then step in to resolve the situation, proving to Ahadi that he, not Mufasa, was the more capable leader. He convinced Mufasa that Boma had refused to share a waterhole, a direct challenge to the king's authority that required the prince's intervention. Mufasa, ever dutiful, agreed to go and reason with the buffalo, unaware of the trap his brother was setting. As Mufasa approached the waterhole, Taka and his hyena allies were watching from the shadows. Mufasa tried to speak with Boma calmly, embodying the diplomatic spirit his father had taught him. But Boma, agitated by the hyenas who had been secretly provoking him for days, was in no mood for talk. He charged. Mufasa, surprised by the buffalo's immediate aggression, was forced to defend himself. A fierce struggle ensued, with Mufasa using his strength to hold the massive creature at bay. This was the moment Taka was waiting for. He leaped from his hiding place, not to help, but to execute the next phase of his plan. He roared, "See, father, Mufasa can't handle him. I will show you how it's done." He intended to use a clever maneuver to trick Boma into a ravine, but Taka had miscalculated. In his arrogance, he underestimated the buffalo's rage and Mufasa's protective instincts. Seeing his brother in the path of the charging Boma, Mufasa acted without a second thought. He shoved Taka out of the way, taking the brunt of a glancing blow from Boma's horn himself. The plan had backfired spectacularly. Mufasa, though injured, managed to subdue the enraged buffalo, driving it away with a powerful roar that echoed across the savannah. The hyenas scattered, leaving Taka alone to face the consequences. But the most significant blow wasn't from Boma. As Mufasa turned to his brother, his eyes weren't filled with gratitude, but with a dawning, painful understanding. He had seen the hyenas. He had heard Taka's words. He realized this was no accident. It was a setup. The physical wounds would heal, but the betrayal cut far deeper. In the aftermath, as the dust settled, the confrontation between the brothers was raw and unforgiving. "You planned this," Mufasa said, his voice low and heavy with disappointment. Taka, cornered and humiliated, lashed out. He denied nothing. Instead, he unleashed all his pent-up bitterness, accusing Mufasa of always hogging the spotlight, of being their father's favorite, of never understanding what it was like to live in a shadow. It was during this heated exchange that Taka received the injury that would define him. In the scuffle, whether from Mufasa's paw or a stray rock, a deep gash was left over his eye. When their father, King Ahadi, arrived, he found his sons wounded and divided. As the truth of Taka's plot came to light, Ahadi's disappointment was immense. The gash over Taka's eye was more than a physical wound. It was a mark of his treachery. From that day forward, Taka demanded to be called Scar, a permanent, bitter reminder of his failure and the day he lost his brother's trust forever. The conflict didn't win him the crown. It only deepened the chasm between him and his family. The crown of conflict had been forged, setting the stage for the tragedy we all know. Mufasa learned a hard lesson about the enemy within, while Scar's heart hardened. His ambition now fused with a cold, patient desire for revenge. This first fight was the turning point. It was the moment a sibling rivalry became a deadly feud. It explained the deep-seated animosity Scar held for Mufasa, a hatred that would simmer for years until it finally boiled over on that fateful day in the gorge. It's a powerful, tragic backstory that adds so much depth to these iconic characters. What do you think? Does knowing this story change how you see Mufasa and Scar? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Prideland's history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. We'll see you in the next video.